Welcome to another new episode of the Get Organised with Decluttering podcast with myself, Shelina. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. If you hear a weird purring noise during this episode, that is because my cat Keanu is sitting right here and will not move. And if I move him, he'll start fighting with his brother who is back here. So we're leaving him here for now. So hopefully he won't bother you. But yeah, that weird purring noise is Keanu. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following for a while, I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. It truly means a lot to me. Your support allows me to continue sharing my love for decluttering and organising every week. And it's a privilege to help create a more organised and clutter-free space for you. If you're enjoying the podcast, I'd love for you to spread the word. Just hit follow, subscribe, or like on your podcast app. Share it with your friends or drop me a review to let me know what you think. We're getting into something a bit different, yet so relevant. How decluttering trends, which are meant to simplify our lives, can actually be a source of stress for so many people. Yeah, you heard that right. Decluttering is stressing people out. Whether it's the pressure to live minimally, the guilt of not achieving a Pinterest perfect home, rainbow-coloured pantries, or just that overwhelming task of figuring out where to start. Many people are feeling the weight of these trends. If you felt this stress, you're not alone. So grab a cup of tea, take a seat, relax, and let's break down the reasons behind this, and more importantly, how to shift decluttering from a source of anxiety to one of serenity. It's no secret that decluttering has become one of the most popular lifestyle movements of the past decade. It's everywhere. Social media, blogs, reality TV shows like Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. I will do an episode about her one day soon. It will be a rant, I promise. And the home edit, you know my feelings about the rainbow. You've got influencers showing off pristine minimalist homes and sharing tips for living with less. On the surface, it seems like this movement is all about freedom, simplicity, and joy, right? But here's where it gets tricky. What we're seeing on these platforms can often create an overwhelming pressure to keep up. The constant barrage of perfectly organized spaces can leave us feeling like we're falling behind. It's easy to compare our own homes to the magazine-like homes we see online. And let me tell you, that comparison can be toxic. Many of my clients tell me that they feel paralyzed by the idea that their space needs to look a certain way and that it doesn't, and they've somehow failed at decluttering. But here's the reality. Those homes you see on Instagram or on your favorite Netflix show, they're staged most of the time. They're not lived in. Real homes are functional spaces where real life happens, and real life is often messy. I told you at the beginning of the episode, my cat was sitting on the desk. It's not buggering off. It has buggered off now. But that's real life. It's messy. It's furry. I have fur on my lips. This is the first point I want to make today. Decluttering isn't about creating a perfect home. It's about creating a space that works for you, your lifestyle, and your family. The pressure to make it look all picture perfect is one of the leading causes of stress I see when it comes to decluttering. Next up, let's talk about minimalism. It's a beautiful concept, isn't it? Living with only what you need, cutting out the excess and finding joy in simplicity. And don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful things about minimalism, like small little things. It teaches us to be intentional about the items we keep in our homes and to avoid accumulating things we don't need. But, and this is a big but, minimalism isn't for everyone. In fact, for some trying to adhere to the extreme minimalism, it can be downright stressful. And as I read once in an article, minimalism only works for billionaires because they have multiple houses, they have lots of money, they can buy what they need whenever they need it. They don't have to have one house filled with stuff because they have houses everywhere and massive houses. See, it works. Minimalism works for billionaires. And also, the extreme minimalism, it can be downright stressful. I've seen clients who have felt the pressure to reduce their possessions to the bare minimum and only to find themselves unhappy because they've purged things that they actually loved or needed. Minimalism shouldn't be about deprivation. It should be about mindful curation. Many of us have hobbies, sentimental items, or even collections that don't exactly fit into the minimalist idea. And that's okay. The goal of decluttering is to not get rid of everything, but to reduce the things that aren't serving you, the things that you don't like, the things that you don't use. So you have room for the things that do bring you happiness and serve a purpose. For example, I love my travel books, which you can always see at the back in the background. I have lots of travel books. I have them organized, but I certainly haven't gotten rid of them, and I'm not going to because they make me happy. They remind me of the cities that I have been to around the world, and that's why I buy them. I bought a new one recently for Mexico City because it came out and I've been there and I love it and I want to go back again. It makes me so happy. So, and it doesn't fit into the minimalist aesthetic, does it? It doesn't. But I don't care. So let's rethink this one-size-fits-all approach to minimalism. It's okay to have things as long as they add value to your life, even if you don't read them all the time, but you love looking at them and going, yeah, I went to that city. Do it, man, do it. Next, one of the most common feelings people express when they begin decluttering is a sense of decision fatigue. When you're surrounded by clutter, it's hard to even know where to start, isn't it? Every item requires a decision. Should it stay or should it go? What if I need it later? What if I feel bad for getting rid of it? And this is where the stress starts to creep in. A lot of people have that with HDMI cables. Yeah, you really don't need 10 HDMI cables. You only need one. I can assure you, you actually don't even need that one. You can go minimalist on HDMI cables. But anyway. So one of the most common feelings people express when they begin decluttering is this sense of decision fatigue. It's when you're surrounded by the clutter, it's hard to even know where to start, isn't it? Every item requires a decision. Should it stay or should it go? What if I need it later? That doesn't apply to HDMI cables. You really don't need 10 HDMI cables. And I'm talking to the men mostly who keep them. You need one. And actually you don't even need that one because all your HDMI cables are connected to your PlayStation TV and Apple TV. So you really don't need any. They should go. And if you don't need it later. But if you thought you need it later, and if you feel bad about getting rid of it, this is where the stress starts to creep in. There's also the stress and pressure to declutter in a single big overhaul, something that I like to call the weekend warrior approach. You've probably seen this in reality TV shows where people spend their entire weekend purging their homes, and by the end of the episode, their space is magically transformed. But in real life, that kind of decluttering can be overwhelming and unsustainable. What happens when a week later you find that the clutter is creeping back? Suddenly you feel like a failure. You think, I've decluttered. Why is this home getting messy again? This leads to what I call is the guilt cycle. You feel guilty for having clutter, then overwhelmed by the idea of dealing with it. So you put it off, which only makes the clutter worse and the cycle repeats. And I'm sure you're getting a headache just from hearing me talk about it. The key to breaking this cycle is to shift your mindset. Decluttering is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. Rather than setting aside an entire weekend to tackle the whole house, try breaking it down into smaller, more manageable tasks. Do a mini declutter, and I know I tell you about doing a mini declutter nearly every episode, but do it. It's the easiest way to start the process. Tackle one drawer, one cupboard, or even just one shelf at a time. Spend 15-20 minutes on that area, and remember, clutter accumulates over time because you buy things. So it's natural that it'll take time to declutter too. There's no rush. Let's pivot to another reason why decluttering can cause stress, the sustainability dilemma. With more people becoming environmentally conscious, decluttering isn't just about clearing your space. It's also about the responsible dealing with the items we no longer want. For a lot of us, the ideas of tossing perfectly good items into a landfill feels wasteful and wrong. But at the same time, figuring out where and how to responsibly dispose of or donate the items can feel like a full-time job. I've had clients who have had piles of things they've been meaning to donate for months but haven't found the time or energy to figure out where to take them. The guilt of not knowing how to get rid of these items sustainably can be paralyzing. So here's my advice. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's fantastic to want to donate or recycle your items, but if you're struggling to figure it all out, give yourself permission to let go of some things in the best way that you can. For example, many donation centres will take a wide variety of items, and there are even companies that will come and pick up the donations for you. Start small and don't overwhelm yourself with the idea that every single item needs to find a perfect new home. One thing I suggest is to create 3 bins while you're decluttering: one for donations, one for recycling, and one for items that need to be responsibly thrown away. This way you have a clear system and can focus progress over perfection. Believe it or not, sometimes even organising can be a source of stress. Yes, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but let me explain. Have you ever gone out and bought a bunch of basket bins or organisers in the hope that these will magically make your clutter disappear, only to find weeks later that your home is still a mess, and now we have a collection of unused storage solutions cluttering up your space? This is what I call over-organising. It happens when we think we are buying more storage solutions to solve the problem of clutter. But here's the truth. You can't organise clutter. You have to declutter first, then organise what's left. So before you run out and buy those fancy acrylic organisers, take a step back and focus on decluttering first. Once you've pared down your belongings, then you can think about how to store and organise them. Trust me, this approach will save you time, money, and most importantly, stress. We've covered a lot today, from the pressure of perfection to the overwhelm of decision making and the sustainability challenges that come with decluttering. But here's my biggest takeaway for you. Decluttering is a journey and not a destination. I know it sounds cliched, but it's true. It's not about achieving a perfectly tidy home that never needs decluttering again. Life is messy, things accumulate, and that's okay. So rather than approaching decluttering as a one-time event, I encourage you to adopt what I call the mini declutter and continuous decluttering. This means making decluttering a part of your routine, just like any other household task. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes a day to tackle small areas, whether it's a drawer, a shelf, or a closet. And over time, these small efforts will add up and you'll find your home so much easier to manage. And here's the best part. When you declutter continuously, it takes the stress out of the process. You're no longer facing. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need a little help decluttering their life. Take care for this week, and I'll speak to you next week. Take care. Bye.